Hey guys, I've had a few messages asking me if I could go and do a video on lay flat food photography in more detail than I have before. As I say, I have done one, but it was kind of more of a general overview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of videos going in depth on lay flat food photography. This one's going to deal with equipment. What do we need? What don't we need? How do we set all this stuff up? Let's get into it. Now, our first piece of equipment that we're going to be looking at is a stand with a boom arm. Specifically, I'm looking at a C-stand with a boom arm. I'm using the Manfrotto Avenger set. Here is what the C-stand looks like. Here is what the boom arm looks like. Put the two together and it works wonderful. I do need a clamp like this and a little spigot so I can attach the ball head of my tripod onto there so I can just simply attach my camera to it and I get that nice top-down look to it. Now, the good and the bad being it's expensive, it's heavy, it doesn't pack down very well, so storage could be an issue, and it's harder to travel with. The good side to it is it's very adjustable for height. I've got a great range of height I can adjust that with, which works out brilliantly. It's heavy, as I said, but that works great for stability, especially with that leg configuration. I can put a beauty dish on the end, studio strobe. I can hang a background on it. I can attach various other photographic equipment to it. So it is a very versatile piece of equipment to have within your studio. So let's look at our next piece of equipment that we could potentially do overhead with. This is my tripod. It's a Manfrotto tripod, and one reason why I love it is the center column comes up and with a little click comes over the top, and it's good for doing lay flat food photography. Or is it? We're going to go over some good and bad points of this type tripod. Now, the first thing is we're going to go over the bad. Bad number one, the height. I don't have enough clearance once I've got my camera on the end to try and get the scene in. So I'm going to need like a fisheye lens to get the scene in. Or I'm going to have to put the food on the floor, or I'm going to need a shorter table in order to photograph it and do the stuff that I need to do. So that's a downside. I'm limited by the height of the tripod not being quite high enough. The other thing is you can see this extension arm. It's not quite long enough to get over the table very well. I've got it right up tight to the table and I get reasonable coverage. But one of the other problems to this is over 3 legs, right? So now I'm in between. So I've got a heavy weight on the end, it's going to tip. I can sandbag the back leg, but I need to buy a sandbag to sandbag the back leg, but I can do it. Or you just say, oh, just put it over the center column, tighten it down. Now it can't tip because the weight of the camera is over that front leg. And you're right, it can't tip. But now it's created a secondary problem. That is, it's now pushed me further away from the table and I already have a short arm. I can barely reach the table now. Now I had to pull back even more. So that's the downsides. One, restricted by height and my working conditions being happen to be lower. So restricted by height, short arm, and balance issues. There are ways to work around each one of those, but I want you aware of the pitfalls of using a tripod like this. Now, the good is I already have it. I don't have to buy any additional equipment. The other thing is it's a tripod. So guess what? It stores and travels very easily because it all just folds up and it doesn't take up much room. So if room in your studio is an issue, this comes in handy because it does store quite easily. So that's the good and the bad of the tripod. And this is a Manfrotto tripod with a Manfrotto RC ball head on the top. And I've shown this in various videos before on YouTube of me using this to actually do some top-down and lay flat style work with it. It does work and I have used it fairly often. Let's look at some other type of equipment that may or may not work better than my tripod. Now, another way to connect your camera to do the lay flat is with these. They're called smart arms, articulating arms. They come by a bunch of different names. Typically you get the arm, this is an 11-inch arm, and then you have a super clamp on the end. Sometimes you can get the two pieces together, or you have to buy them separately and put together like this. There's a shorter version of a little super one, but they come in different sizes, they come in different makes and models. Now, like with everything, we have the good and we have the bad. The bad being, you've got to be very careful that this doesn't fall and you break your camera. So you've got to be careful that these are rated right for the weight that you're trying to use it for. The other thing is you need to connect it to something. So you need another stand or bar. So you need additional equipment to go with it. The other thing is you can have a bit of a balancing issue with it. And I have heard of some people having problems with bearings inside that jump track and make the arm useless. So that's some of the pitfalls to this. Some of the good is they work. They're small, they're light, they pack easy, they store easy, and they travel easy. You can't get much better than that, and you don't have to go and get those additional clamps that I'm showing for the extension arm. You can use these. The other good thing with these is you can attach different types of equipment to it. If I put a light on the end of this, mounted on that bracket, a microphone, I can rig it up to hold a reflector. There's so many different options that you can use these things for. Honestly, you can never have enough of these in the studio. Even if you don't like using them for the lay flat, there's multiple uses for these. But let's get into how do you hook this all up to get the camera up overhead. I'm using my Avenger C stand with the boom arm. So there's the small little articulating arm attached to my D800, and it's basically just into the tripod mount. Now we just simply connect to the overhead stand here, and you want to make sure that things are tightened down, and they're tightened down well, because you don't want this to slip, fall, or break. Then it's simply just a matter of, I want this the other way, putting your camera, tightening everything down well. And I don't normally have the strap on my camera when I'm doing overhead work, but if I do, I just try and make sure it's tucked up and out of the way. But there you go. I mounted my D800 for lay flat photography on our setup below, and I can adjust the height of the stand up and down. But that's another alternative to hooking this up. As I say, they're small, they do work, but make sure it'll support the weight that you're putting into it. All right, that's it for this one. Let's have a look at another possible way that we can put our camera up without using this one. Our last piece of equipment that we're going to look at to get our camera up overhead is basically, think of it as a background stand like this. It's two light stands with a bar across, whether it's a background bar or you use an extension pole. If you use the extension pole, then you're going to need a couple more clamps like this to attach on each end, and you need, again, one for the middle to attach your camera to. So the bad to it is, it's a lot of parts. It's heavy because there's a lot of parts. It's expensive because you need all that stuff. It's hard to store, and it's hard to travel with because of all that kit. The good to it is, you got a lot of stuff that you can modify. You might already have some of this stuff in your studio. You might already have a light stand, so you don't need to buy two. You only need to buy one. You might already have two. So it's very versatile in what you can do with it. You can put studio lights on it. You can hang a background on it because it's a background support system. You can leave it up permanent as a top-down view for you over your shoot area. So it's a very versatile piece of kit, and you may already have it. So now the next problem that we run into, we've got our camera mounted up. We need to make sure it's level, because if you've ever seen lay flat food photography, that's not quite lay flat, it's more tilted. It looks like food's going to slide right off. We don't want that. How do we avoid it? Well, some cameras have built-in gyroscopes to help level your camera. If not, you can use various leveling devices, such as a line level like this, or you can use little googly eyes, as I call them, like this. Funny enough, this came with my Sony ZV-1 screen protectors. I got two of them for some reason. I don't know why, but very handy. I just simply put on the back of my camera, on the back of the LCD, and I can level my camera up to make sure that I am properly flat to my subject on the table. Now we have our camera up stable and it's flat, but we have a problem. My camera's up here. I can't see what it's seeing. So how do we remedy that? Let me tell you, the way we remedy it, you can shoot tethered. You can see exactly what's going on. You may luck out and your camera has a rotating screen so you can see what's going on. Or you may have a video out which you can connect to an external little monitor, one of the little small ones, or I connect to a 24-inch monitor, my old computer monitor, and I can see what's going on. So there is ways to work around the fact that your camera's up there and you can't see what's going on. Now, our next problem, it seems like we got problems. but we're finding solutions to all of it. The next problem is, how do I release the camera when it's up there and I'm down here? Again, if you're shooting tethered, you can release from the computer. Your camera may have an app that you can use to release it. Your camera may come with a remote in order for you to release it. Or if you don't have any of that available to you, your camera, I'm pretty sure, has a self-timer. Get up on the old step stool, hit the self-timer, climb back down, boop, picture taken. So that solves our issue of not being able to see and how we release our camera. Now, I have done in the past, though, I've stood on a chair holding my camera, trying to get that top-down view. That was before I did more of a permanent rig. You just got to be careful you don't fall on the table in doing so. I wouldn't recommend it. Now, a huge thing that we have to be aware of in lay flat food photography is our background. It is such an intricate part of the photo because so much of it is visible. I mean, look at this. That's a distracting background. Look at this one. That's better. It complements and doesn't take away from our subject. And backgrounds are so versatile, and there's so many different variations of backgrounds that you can have. You can DIY backgrounds, you can buy backgrounds, but I would suggest, especially in food photography, that you get a background that is wipeable, because there's nothing worse than staining your background or simply ruining it. I will put a link down below to a video I did on how to DIY some backgrounds for yourself for food photography. But that's it for this one, guys. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you're aware when I post new videos like this. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. So, until the next time.